Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Be My Own Boss podcast.
Hello, Steve. Hello, everybody.
With myself and Mr. Mike Hruby. And today, I know that many of you know I did a piece on the two pieces now on the Massachusetts thing, because the week before last week, I did a piece on what had happened and transpired from all of this. And this week, I did a piece on what happened after that, which is Mike's going to get into in a little bit more detail. And hopefully, even guys, if you're hearing the word Massachusetts, don't tune out, because this applies to everybody. This doesn't just apply to the state of Massachusetts. In fact, it applies to could be any states, but I would safely say some states are more safe than others. But don't just think if you're a red state you're safe either. This is one to watch, because what they're doing there is absolutely upside down wrong, and goes against everything that we're doing. So I don't know, Mike, I don't want to confuse people with just ABC tests, because sometimes then they start going, oh, that's that Prop 22 AB5 talk. I don't like that. So it's not, guys, if we mention ABC test, it does apply to many states. I mean, yes. We have it in our language, and
yep. So in about half the states in some form or another, ABC, A and B, B and C, AC, one of the three. And it's fairly common, and we're going to be going into it, here on the Be My Own Boss podcast. But for now, what we need to talk about urgently, because we need to get the attention of drivers and independent contractors and passengers and clients of what's coming, because Massachusetts wears 10-league boots in independent contractor law. So it's worth paying attention to. I know we're a little state. We got a lot of brick. We got lobster and chowder. And this is way worse than the lobster and the chowder, by the way. So what I'm calling it is the the Boston Massacre of 2024, because Massachusetts, Boston, the city, this is our capital city here, in addition to a major port, has absolutely flogged the platforms, and by extension, all platforms and all clients and all independent contractors with this settlement. And it's a new form of law that people really aren't used to. They know about laws that are written by a legislature, and then there are court decisions usually around those laws, but they're not really aware that sometimes a law, a settlement of a court case can become a law, because that's what you have to follow in that state. So this is a big deal. There's no overdoing how important it is. And Steve and I could probably sit here for a week continuously, with bathroom breaks and time for barbecue, just talking about this bill, and it's worth listening to, but we're not going to make you listen to it. We're going to give you just a distillate so you can go on your way and think, those guys got it for me. So The first thing you got to know, and I'm sure you've heard, is the cash cost of this settlement to Uber and Lyft. It's $175 million. I don't think there is
and that's just for past.
That's just for past.
That's not even moving forward. That's just to play catch up, and it's
just to clear the fridge, right?
Yeah,
all the old party stuff. And now the Uber cost is let's see, what was that? 148 million cash by the end of the month. Right about now. That's 3% of Uber's total corporate cash gone. That's a board decision. Nobody walks down to the treasurer's office and says, I need $148 million. Make it out to the Attorney General of Massachusetts. Yeah, we'll see you later. No, this is a huge deal for Uber and Lyft. And they fought tenaciously for 4 years to avoid this, and then got hit with it anyway. That's a measure of the power of the ABC type labor law. We're going to go into that a lot. but you guys are going to be fully informed about what you need to know about the horribleness of what's coming down. Okay, now the second thing, this is just like headlines. The second thing is there's a long benefits menu of what's going to be mandatory benefits, and you know who's going to pay for them. You're going to pay for them, okay? And everybody, and so when you look at the whole list, remember, I was an employer for 20 plus years. I've been self-employed for 40 years. I know how to look at this from the different sides. I think what's important to know here is that this creates a new status in Massachusetts called dependent contractor. You haven't heard the term before. That's what they made up. They're talking about the third way. Well, the third way is a dependent contractor, and I'll tell you why. All the benefits that you're going to get and all your pay is going to go through the state of Massachusetts and their apparatus. Okay? The first thing, the little thing to know, and they will tell you a lot, there's a minimum hourly payment. It's like a minimum wage, $32.50 an hour. What? Amazing. That's wonderful. And then something like 30 pages more of what is going to come out of that 32, either directly or indirectly. So don't spend it all, okay? Don't spend it yet. So $32.50 sounds big.
But
now, go ahead.
I want to just pause there for a second, because I've talked to enough drivers where literally every single one of them says, listen, if I'm not making more than 40 an active hour, not even 32.50, more than 40, I would stop doing this. For this, again, is market dependent. And this is for Boston.
Yep.
They've said, if I'm not going to make 40 an hour, I wouldn't do this. And that's active time without this rule. So 32.50 sounds like a lot, but it's, when it comes to active time, it's not.
I don't think it's going to get any better.
It would have been better just to leave it.
Well, I would say that about every line down here, but there's room for some people to say, geez, this is an improvement. But I think it's going to be the people that really don't know how to do the driving and don't know how to scope it all out and don't know how to, compare apps on the fly, on the way cross town in the rain, blockage in traffic on I-25, and here's the job I should take. I don't think they've got that yet.
But but even you've said that's we've talked about this. That's part of being an independent contractor, that you have a skill set that you have to offer that is better than somebody else's. So if you can't learn it quick enough, maybe you need to move on.
Yes, maybe this is not the business for you. Okay, so now we got the hourly payment, and then what they do is they say, well, we're going to pay you for driving to the ride once you've signed up for it, and between rides if you go from ride to ride. Okay, now that sounds like a good deal. And from a market, company management, accounting, that's really a marketing expense. You're going to go get the next job. So you can say that's a plus, but that is going to be the rule now. And you've taken out, that's going to be taken, that gives them the right to take money back from you. So I think it's a red herring. Later on, we'll talk about what this means to other platforms. Then, okay, so we've got this $32.50. You think, okay, $32.50, and I've got inflation going at 10 or 12% a year, depends on where you want to measure it. But 3 years of that is, like 35%. That'll bring it down to 32 to what? 30% off of that is like a bunch, 21. Like 2021 is half of what Steve said, the people are telling him they want to work for. So this is like a down escalator, and you thought you didn't have to move your feet. Well, you don't. It's going to go down. And in order to get it up, there are three things. You've got an equation with three things. It's the lesser of two of them compared to the state minimum wage. And then you get the higher of those two, one being the lesser. So if the state minimum wage doesn't change, you get a maximum of 3%, or the actual, what was that? ... It's really clever. Or the increase in inflation. the less of it. So if we get 10% inflation and no change in minimum wage, you're going to be making, you get inflation, you get the 3% instead of the inflation.
Right.
Okay. So, and everybody who was negotiating knew what that meant. So they're going to take it out of the drivers eventually. The drivers were lunch with, some poor lamb with 5 wolves sitting around the table deciding what's for lunch. Okay. Now that's the pay rate increase. It's a formula. It's not that they're Uber and Lyft are going to sit down with the drivers and start with a clean sheet of paper and say, okay, what do you guys got to have this year? No, there's none of that. The drivers don't even factor in. Okay, so that's the big thing. The pay increases come from an equation. Then there are 6 different forms of insurance that are going to be mandated. 6 different forms of insurance. And those are all coming out of your $32 minus a couple of other things. So this is
what are 6? Why do I need 6 insurances?
Well, they're listed.
I mean, I don't, but why do they say I do?
Well, there's sick leave accrual. Okay.
Right.
That means you can get paid.
Yeah,
you get paid and don't go to work. All right. Guess who pays?
And they figured, right, they make that look like actually a present, but it's actually a negative.
It's not a present.
Part of being an independent contractor. If you're going to be sick, it's on your time.
It's a loan. They take it back. It has a trip rate. It's like Verizon. You get to carry over your 5 gigs, except you can only carry over them a month in Verizon, and here you can't carry them past 40 hours a year. So that's gonna degrade. That's a asset that is somebody else has access to. Did you want to know the whole bunch? There's occupational accident insurance. There's accidental death insurance to your defendants. Mm-hmm. There's reasonable burial expenses. I have to tell you, I haven't had a burial expense. And you know what? I lived all 40 years without it. A little money in the bank, guys. Give it to your significant other, your bride, your groom, whatever. Give it to your kids. Say, here, if something happens bad, at least you can bury me.
I was laughing there, by the way, because we all know that even during the pandemic, when Uber and Lyft said that they would do things, and I hate to bag on this scenario, but they didn't do anything. Legal Rideshare did more than that. I mean, there was a joke made about there were these people claiming these deaths during the pandemic, and they weren't getting any of the money Uber and Lyft was promising. If you drove, you got. And there was a joke made about like, well, maybe they'll just give you a shovel.
Right. to each of the heirs. Oh, well, that is really kind. They're going to get Home Depot or Lowe's, really cheap that rattles. Okay. Now, so then the first one, so there's sick leave accrual. We talked about that. Occupational accident insurance for all years. You get up to $1 million benefit. Sounds terrific. You got really hit hard in that accident. And 156 weeks. That is a whole lot, like 3 full years. But it's at 66% of whatever you were making. So it might work out to almost nothing, and then you've got to be really near death's door to get all of it. So why don't you just get a real, drive an extra hour, buy your own, insurance policy so that you own it. That's water over the dam now. Okay, then there's a portable health fund. Half paid by the company and half paid by the driver out of that $32.50 an hour or whatever they're going to make. All right. And then there's last insurance was paid family and medical leave allowance, which is paid to the driver. You and I know what's going to happen. They just moved money from one of your pockets to the other and gave you a check for it. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, I can't believe they're doing this. It all comes out of the $32.50. Can't imagine that the drivers are ahead, and they're doing this with a straight face. All right, so that's the big thing. Now, forever, as far as I could tell, I could not see a termination date in it, and I've read it 4 times. The Attorney General oversees the benefits and pay for this period. And I guess for all the new ones, because this is still in the purview. So you now have 2 bosses. Mm-hmm. You have, according to the accusations, you have Uber and Lyft because they say that you're your boss, but we'll get to that. and you have the Attorney General. So those are, I don't know, possibly not the most responsive people you want with your pay and benefits. They're not very.
I mean, look, I mean, their track record, if it actually goes if it went all the way to a W-2, all these people who claim that that's what they want, they wouldn't work for Uber or Lyft.
No,
they'd go move on to a different job. And which my point is, just do it now then.
Yeah.
But I want to, before you move any farther forward, I do want to read this because this was a comment that was put on by somebody I know very well who has extremely good comments. I'm gonna give him a shout out. It's at Mike Drop Barbecue. He's in Arizona. His name is Jeff. He said the reason for so he's talking about the active hour after 2 weeks is a trick because they're going to pay you every 2 weeks for that active hour time if you go under the 3250. And this is what he said, and I wanted your response on this, Mike. The reason for the 2 weeks is because of payroll. For W-2s is typically calculated for 1 week, which is the week before the actual week you're paid. They're basically adjusting hours and moving things in the system around. Pay attention to your active hours by logging the data yourself. These apps are manipulating the data because most drivers don't do their own bookkeeping. They trust the app. And anyone that's processed payroll before knows this. You can edit the data hours to get the numbers where you want. We used to call it a docking party or docking pay. The apps will be docking drivers who aren't keeping track of their hours. Watch, they'll owe more, but adjust you down and give the illusion that you've worked less and made more. Any comment on that?
Yes, I believe that all that I know of in that appears to be factually correct.
Okay.
I think the Massachusetts they're being treated like yes.
Oh no, I was just saying hi to Lynn.
Okay. Right. They're being treated like employees with that bi-weekly thing. Maybe their alibi is, well, that way you get your pay regularly. Well, if Uber and Lyft and all the other platforms aren't paying you regularly, you got a way bigger question than when you get it. You know, if they're not living up to any agreement and then you may not have an agreement and the whole thing just goes down the toilet. So the rest of his comments I thought were pretty accurate. So I think he understands. There apparently, from what everybody says, there's manipulation going on. If there isn't, then there's terrible communication going on. Mm-hmm. Because normally, if you were a manufacturer, you'd start picking that up immediately. You have people literally at the desk down the hall watching social media every day to see if they can pick off why the light bulbs don't work when they buy them at Lowe's. I mean, they're two sides of the party watching that. There's Lowe's and Home Depot, and you can't let it run. So I think this issue is so huge. If people don't trust the app, it's got to be at least half because of the app, because I don't think 300,000 or whatever drivers are fundamentally crooked and complaining, and they're driving for Uber and Lyft in Massachusetts. I just don't think that.
I think I don't know where they come up with those numbers anyway. From what I can see, it's like 10 or 12 that gather to, and I'm not talking 10 or 12,000. I'm talking 10 or 12 people that gather to crankies.
Yes, and they're probably paid as by who.
Yeah,
they're paid to be cranky. People don't work when they're cranky, and lungs. Anyway, the last thing I saw that was really important was that after Uber and Lyft gave up their 5 or 6 different alternative ballot questions, like Prop 22, in other words, get the voters to approve independent contractor status for the app drivers. Mm-hmm. That's good. It worked out in California, although a lot of people hated it. The drivers were fine with it. Here, the AG got them to take them out of the submission file. The platforms take their ballot questions out of the submission file, and then after this became effective, she approves the unionization ballot question, and everybody thought that the deal was that no, both sides were going to take, not resort to the ballot. So the Attorney General of Massachusetts in public double-crossed the platforms, Uber and Lyft, and talked about what a wonderful thing unions are for drivers. And I think that is terrible. It's bad optics. It's immoral. It's irresponsible of somebody in that position to say, I'm in charge of all ballot questions and we're going to deal with everything impartial. Oh, and by the way, surprise, it's Tuesday and I think the unions are absolutely fantastic. No, let's just wait a second. What did she just do here? She weighed them and she pulled one off and said, oh, this one wins. Ha ha, it's the one I wanted. Ha ha ha. So it makes you wonder about Andrea Joy Campbell.
Yes.
Where is she getting her ethical sensation? In some ways, this has nothing to do with drivers at all. This has to do with running a statewide office with infinite funds to fight anybody they want. They wrist wrestled two of the largest companies in the country to an absolute shocking, ending that will never end. There's no termination of this. This is forever.
She's the East Coast Lorena Gonzalez.
She's worse.
She's winner.
Good,
but
buddy.
I mean, but see, listen, look. So here's Ron from Massachusetts. We've had Ron submit a video. You know that one. He's saying, so I can drive 16 hours a day in Massachusetts for Uber and Lyft at $32.50, 6 days, $31.20 a week, $5.20 a day. But Ron, that's active time. Can you do 16 active hours? Because my guess is if you're on the platforms for 16 hours, I don't know how much you'd be active, but also, I mean, you can't do 6 days a week at 16 hours. I mean, you could, but you'd burn out so fast it would.
Yeah, you'd be. But I mean, there are guys who do that.
Right, I know. Then I know a lot of them. But but my point is even at that, I don't think you're going to be active the entire time.
I don't think it's possible, unless you've got some way to, go east and west at the same time.
And if it does become possible, if it is possible, my guess is as soon as August 1st hits and this goes into law, if people hear that that's what's happening, you're going to see oversaturation like you've never seen.
Oh, we're going to have guys coming in from Wyoming. So I'm going to get myself some of that $32.50.
Yeah. Well, you have New York now locking drivers out.
That's just a gross, Steve. I mean, I don't doubt he said he can do that, but how long can he do it? And he's grossing $3,000 6 days, 3,000 a week.
He says he can do 10 to 12 active on 16 hours. He can do about 10 to 12 active
on auto accept. Well, good for him.
But see, my question is, Ron, do you not make that already? Because most people, everyone. I mean, I talked to 5, and they're veteran drivers, and they're all in Boston. But in Boston, they tell me that they won't turn the car on if they're not making 40. So that's already $7.50 above what they're saying what they're going to pay you.
I'm not arguing with Ron. I think if he can do it, that's
yeah. I mean, the whole thing about this is the hustle. If Ron can do it, sweet.
I'm inclined to expect that,
but this isn't needed. I don't know.
What Ron describes in business terms is legitimate. Guys with a family who are forced into bankruptcy and don't have any, and they have expenses, and everybody's got to eat. Mm-hmm. They do this. I've done that myself. I'll do anything I can to support my family if I don't have a job. I've been there. I know that feeling that gets that behind what Rob is saying. I can do this. I just don't have to sleep 8 hours every night. After a year, you're just a basket case, but you can often recover from a hole in there. But you've got all your other expenses and taxes. $150,000 has huge taxes in Massachusetts, plus federal. So, you're really you're killing yourself for the government basically, and at that level. But more power to you if you can bring in. I'm not questioning Ron. I'm actually asking Ron though what he is making right now at those same hours.
That's what I'd really be interested in. Again, I don't, even if it's like 2,000 instead of 3,600, I still am totally against what they're doing here.
I welcome anybody to put their comments in the.
Oh yeah.
I think that we're going to do more in this series,
because he also earlier commented, and Ron's a good guy. I mean, I watch his videos too. He's got a channel on YouTube, but he says, what about Mass Health?
That's actually in that's it. That's one of the programs. It's a contribution towards Portable Health Fund. That's for the administrator. The apps pay 50% by the company for the lowest mass connector exchange, or 100% if they're averaging, the drivers are averaging 25 hours per week of combined engagement time. That's specifically in the agreement.
Okay, so here, I guess here's his answer. I throttled my driving since now I have a small child. So yes, those 16-hour days, I think he meant, are gone. So I shoot for 1,500 a week to help with my new child.
Ron, my hat's off to you.
Yeah.
Love you, guy. Thank you. Thanks for taking care of that little kid. Love him. I love her.
But so obviously he's doing less hours though too. Here's my thing, guys, is that look at the other part that we didn't even mention yet is that in every state they've tried anything like this, and this is the hardest core one we've seen. Immediately the first thing Uber and Lyft do is raise the price on the customers. Yep. It does cause dramatic decrease in rides, and it has actually, they call it micro transit now, which is you think it used to mean something else, but now what it means is instead of taking Uber from your house to work, you take it to the train, and then you take the train to work. So you're using two modes of transportation because you can't afford the one anymore. And then it slowly starts dying off, and then you get the oversaturation. Your active time starts becoming way less than it is now. In every state, they've implemented this stuff. The drivers who go out for, let's just keep it even, 10 hours, and maybe they were having 80% active time. Like in most of these states, they're getting 60 at best now. I mean, I'm just going off the stats of California and Seattle and, you know, some of New York City. I mean, New York City's locking out drivers. And in fact, in New York City, when they lock out drivers, somebody sent me a screenshot. It says you can move to another market if you want, because we just don't have the space, or some kind of weird thing that the thing they're putting up like that. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to go to Boston.
Yeah. Again, get me some of that good 3250.
Yeah, I mean,
all the strings that are attached to it. You're going to spend all your time trying to figure out if you're getting your deal from Uber or Lyft and the Mass Attorney General. You should be out there doing figuring out how Ron is doing this and doing getting your own drift.
Exactly. Ron is a true independent contractor, though. Ron hustles. Yes. He knows where to work. Like we were talking about earlier, maybe not everybody's suited for this. Ron knows what to do.
I agree.
But I mean, the other problem here is that like you said, you got all this deal being made with the Attorney General, and then they remove all these proposals, and all of a sudden she jumps on board with the unions. There's nothing locking Uber and Lyft into staying.
None. And if they see unionization, they're going to go, what?
They'll leave, because I mean, that was the deal. We'll stay. Here's the deal. We don't like it, but here's the deal that we'll take.
Right. But it's just going to come back.
But the only thing they got out of it was you can't unionize. So the next day she turns around and says, oh, you can unionize, or let's vote for you to unionize. I mean, if she really thinks they'd go, oh, okay, we'll stick around for that. She's crazy.
This is a treble damages state. So whatever they don't tell you anything about this. We're going to talk about, maybe in the next episode, we're going to talk about the anatomy of ABC labor law and how this stuff works. They were facing a much bigger fine, and they worked it down to this with these concessions underneath here. This was not the top line. I would say more like 350 million is my guess, and it could have been higher, because they add everybody up. They take all the benefits like this. This is how they calculated the benefits. They assign them to a driver. They do a giant spreadsheet and they triple it in the end. After all of this stuff is tripled, easily 350, 400 million. That is a fractional billion. You can do the math yourself. It's unbelievable what they were exposed to. And the platforms are loving being able to reduce it. And all they have to do is raise prices and, take on a bunch more drivers and let inflation, like everything else, let inflation buy them out of this.
Okay.
It's really too bad.
I mean, don't forget either. Uber, every other state they've done it in, Uber and Lyft puts a little first of all, they jack the fees. They use this as a great reason to jack the fees, but then they add a line item that says Massachusetts legislation BS charge, and they show it to the customer and they'll put like $5-10 on every ride so that the customer knows part of this is this.
And Ron says that the trick is that all trips are to start in Massachusetts. Yeah, we got a lot of border here. There's New Hampshire coming down and Rhode Island coming up.
Well, I mean, that'll also cause problems too, because like Ron said, people will avoid taking trips out of the state then.
Yeah. Right.
They'll say, I don't want to go out of the state because then the one I pick up coming back isn't going to be on this active time thing, and it's not going
to it'll be something else. So they've got all these different currencies. Meanwhile, the thing to do is to try to get a strategy like, the guys who have talked about having a strategy in those the testimonials. By the way, we're running long, but I just wanted to say that we are still open on Dropbox and Vloggy for people who want to comment on why they are independent contractors.
Yeah, guys, that is slowed a lot. I'm going to just shoot you from the hip. It's slowed too much. We need to get that back up, because when we first started it, I mean, you guys were booming them in. We really, like, if you guys are listening and you haven't done one, like Ron has, Tony's in here, he has, Ellen's in here, she has, let's see, Chris Taylor's in here, he has, Carnifage, you haven't. Let's see you do one. Come on, Carnifage, come through for us.
You guys are great, by the way. You're good actors. You've got nice theater timing. We're dying to put up more of these. Let's get them in. And you got the whole nation is going to be watching, and you guys are the lead artists in the performance in favor of being independent contractors. What the unions and the government regulators, who are, I repeat myself, they're trying to wipe out independent contracting completely. So that driving for Uber is going to be, you got to sign up, you got to apply, there's going to be a delay, they're going to take somebody else because you're not the preferred driver. And then you're going to have to, like Boots said, we're going to have to go to the bathroom when they say it's time to go to the bathroom.
So we're in triple overtime. We got to go. But here's the last question I have for you, Mike. This has been a major fight in Massachusetts for a long time. Dana, who who also made a video for us, he lives in Boston. He was the one that I think I even told you a few weeks back said, if it doesn't happen this year, it's not ever going to happen. That's my take. And he's always been very political about this stuff. And he said, this is the end. And this is before any of this happened.
The end of what?
He just said, this is going to be the final battle. Either it happens this year or it doesn't happen.
What?
All this push that just happened.
Oh, well, there is no end game for the unions other than winning completely. So we got to fight. There are ways to do it. Your video is the first step, is to get more drivers, more independent contractors of all sorts involved, because guys, we have what we need to move it our way, but we can't do it with a bunch of guys asleep in the hammock. So that's the first step in gaining clout. Clout's another thing we're going to talk about. Clout for you guys, not me.
So you guys smack that like. Make sure that you go over and subscribe to, if you're watching on Rideshare Rodeo, make sure you go over and subscribe to Mike's channel as well. This is the all you got to do is put the @Be My Own Boss podcast into search in YouTube. You'll be taken right to it, or go in the show notes. It's in there. You can just click it, and make sure you subscribe over there too, and you're watching over there and you like, because we're trying to kind of momentum over to there too. So
Chris Taylor, thanks for the Dropbox upload, everybody. The Chris has got it in there.
Yeah. You guys, we are absolutely out of time. We got questions coming in, and
yeah, we'll put them in. We'll read them. We'll read them and resume.
Yeah. So if we don't ever get to your question, that's a good point. After the fact, put it in the comments, and we'll put it for next week. We can actually start off with any comments that we're not. And if you're watching this on the replay, leave your comments, and we'll read them first. So, but Mike, yeah, we're in triple overtime now. I think we're about to be beheaded. So thank you guys for joining us.
Thanks,
that just
everybody.
flew by. There's just so much to talk about. Like Mike said, we could do this forever.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
But
hey, it's 73 million people's job, and yours and mine. Okay, see you soon.
Thanks, guys.